Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm Roti4, this is Greyjotter91.
Hello.
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
Be water, my friends.
Why don't you explain what we're doing today, Matt?
Okay, so this is the book one overview, sort of like a retrospective look back at season one of Avatar: The Last Airbender, book one, Water. We're going to be talking a little bit about how our perspectives have changed, from before we started this review series to after, because this is the first time we've really completed a series of reviews of this scope before. We're going to be giving out like a little series of three sort of fun awards that we just sort of came up with, and we'll be giving our lists of our top or our bottom three, like our least favorite episodes, and our top 10 favorite episodes. And that's pretty much it. That's the rundown of what we're doing. So, Antoine, take us away.
Yeah, so this season, the first season, it's kind of crazy because if you really think about it, when it first came out, Nickelodeon was known for like SpongeBob and like the Very Odd Parents, stuff like that. So it was very crazy that Matt and Brian were able to not only make a show like this, but like not compromise their vision at all. And that's one of the things that Dave Filoni had like said to them when they first designed the show. He's like, you guys are so lucky to be able to, for whatever reason, they greenlit your show and you guys got to do it exactly the way you wanted. And it's kind of like weird, for the network that you're on. Like it's something that you might see on Cartoon Network, but I don't even think it even fits into Cartoon Network like perfectly, because that one's also kind of weird in a different way. Yeah,
one of the things about it is nothing else. It's like its own flavor,
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, it's very clearly Western, but like totally taking its cues from anime, and like that's like one of the reasons why I was always able to get into it.
It's a very nice blend. I can't think of anything else that blends the two styles from the different cultures as aptly as Avatar does.
Even today,
I don't like it. Yeah,
and even today, I don't know what it was doing on Nickelodeon. Like it doesn't look like something that I just don't know how it wound up.
I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't know where to put it. I can't think of outside of standalone, project. But most of those go to films, not series. So yeah, I wouldn't know what network to put on if I had the choice personally.
Right.
To the point that when it came out, like it was being advertised, I had zero interest just because it seemed like, what, they're doing anime now? Like what? I mean, and it just seemed, and the early promos were very like, this is comedic, and it was like, I'll give it a shot. And then it turns out to be like one of the most heartfelt things ever,
Yeah.
But yeah, just it blindsided me.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid, I think, opening for a show. Like I don't think anyone who starts up Avatar really stops. I haven't met anyone personally who's like, yeah, I tried it out and then I just stopped watching. Like any person I've ever met, any friend I've said, hey, if you just watch the first like 5 episodes, you'll be good. Like you are going to watch the entire series. And yeah, it's worked. Like even Blind Wave recently, like I had them, I think maybe 3 years ago. I told them to start watching it, and now they've watched the entire series now. Like it's insane, like how that it works for everybody.
Some people are somehow immune to its charms. Even our friend Evan,
Oh, that's true. Okay, so Evan, that is true.
Yeah, but I mean, he did watch it. But he hasn't seen Korra, as far as I know. But I mean, like the point is, like what I'm getting at is, not everyone loves it for whatever reason. I mean, people can be flawed. But I mean, it is like it's just so fucking good, and good doesn't really encapsulate it. It's so layered.
It's artful. There aren't that many things that aren't only enjoyable but are also meaningful on another level. And
I think when you talk about like, did you call it like you think is a pretty good opening, like for like the series? One of the best things about it is that it's something that is establishing its own mythos. It doesn't feel ripped from anything. Like they're like, here's the rules, like here's how it works. And people can argue, whether or not Korra undid this or whether the series itself followed through on all of this. It doesn't matter. The point is, for something that is like from the outset, like its voyage, like its maiden voyage, it's doing a really good job of setting things up as it's going along,
Yeah, definitely.
Without all these ancillary works or out of universe stuff. Yeah.
Very self-contained, very self-driven. And while it definitely draws inspiration from things, I mean, we mentioned Studio Ghibli works for, the spiritual inspiration, for example. It never feels directly pulled. It's just, I can see where they've kind of got the groundwork for this idea and how they've built upon it. It's always, developed to the point where it's its own thing. And
you can
it's
always
more appreciable for that.
You can definitely draw parallels between just about anything. Like you can go, well, Captain Planet had a bunch of like teenagers with elemental powers saving the world. It's like, yeah, but no. Like I mean, it's just like yeah, it's not at all the same thing, not even
Yeah,
close. So I mean, it's totally its own little pocket of entertainment.
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you have more to say about on an overview on season one. I mean, like, I don't know if you can say much
I
more
mean,
about it.
The placement of episodes, I think, was quite well done. I mean, we mentioned as we went through the Fanalysis how we'd move maybe one or two episodes around in the sequencing, but I think it's well paced in terms of episode placement. We get nice ups and downs, big epic moments with not filler between them, because obviously there's significant moments for character and plot points, but there's a nice kind of dramatic pacing. So you'll get a tense moment here, light episode there, and it all feels a part of a cohesive whole. So that's something I'd like to note.
Yeah, I think there's maybe only one or two episodes I would like say are a little bit not even that they're misplaced. It's just that they would have broken up the story a little bit better if they'd been interspersed somewhere else. But other than that, I agree. I think that's like a storytelling thing. Like I kind of feel like you either got it or you don't when it comes to like being able to tell a story. Like some people are just not funny, like it doesn't matter what they do, they're just not very funny. And these people, I think they know how to tell a story. They know how to time themselves. They know when to build up to something, when to like drop the big moment, and when to just leave breadcrumbs. They're very good at that.
Definitely.
And how to balance the dramatic with comedic. Like, I think I was just having a discussion with someone, I can't remember what it was, some new movie that came out recently, and that was like, yeah, why is it that, like, with Avatar you can have like some dramatic stuff, and then you have like Sokka and fishhooks on this other hand, how and why do they do that so well? And it's one of those things that you just kind of have to have the talent to like know when to like pull back and when to be funny, and then when to pull back so that you can let the drama land a little bit.
Yeah.
If nothing else,
Sokka's kind of like the poster boy for that.
Definitely,
like, really,
definitely,
right? And encapsulated in one character.
But if nothing
you can
else,
take him seriously.
You can take him seriously. It's not like he's constant comic relief. He has a character outside of that. But I think one of the biggest distinctions is the fact that it steers away from bathos. It's not following up a dramatic moment directly with a comedic one. It does it on occasion, but it's not the base of the comedy. A lot of modern kind of works that are considered or at least have an undercurrent of comedy throughout them use bathos to kind of slam on the whole haha, isn't this funny, you weren't expecting this, were you, and that kind of moment, which very often damages the predecessor in the dramatic scenes. Avatar doesn't do that, which is one of the big strengths. It like you say, it places it well. It leaves breathing room between the drama and the comedy. I think that's where the power of it lies.
Yeah, but I mean as far as like our specific thoughts on stuff, like we've kind of got 20 episodes. And, like everyone can go through and check out. Like if you don't understand what we're talking about at this point, you can go through every episode and work your way through what our specific thoughts were on pretty much every moment that's ever been. But we kind of want to talk about like perspective, like whether or not anything shifted.
Yeah, how things shifted after we've done this Fanalysis, and what kind of episodes stood out for us, and like, oh, we didn't think about this the first time around, that kind of thing. What was it like for you guys? Anything stand up to you?
I didn't realize how much I actually like Jet, like, because prior I didn't really think about it all that much, but then rewatching it and then having to like sort of like defend why I liked it, I was like, oh, now I realize why I like it, because I have to actually like get up and like discuss and talk about it, kind of a situation. That was the one episode I think for me that like shifted the most.
On that one, I had the opposite perspective, just because I've never particularly cared for the subject matter as much, but I definitely like analyzing it. It was like, wow, this is a well-made episode, like one of the best that they did all season. On a technical level, and even just like the subject matter, it just didn't appeal to me, but it is very well done.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same way with you on that one. As for the biggest shift after going through and looking on the kind of an analytical level that we do for these, my biggest one has to be Imprisoned. I mean, I always enjoyed the episode, but for me, it was always one of the mediocre ones. But looking back through for this, and with the analytical hat on, my mind was blown with the execution of that episode in terms of narrative design, and particularly one scene that I'm intending to make a video on specifically, that just it works on every level in a really powerful and dramatic way, specifically attached to the narrative kind of impact of the episode as a whole and the message it's sending. And I didn't pick up on it really the first time, because I was just I don't know, I just wasn't thinking about it. I was just kind of letting the episode flow, as you so often do when you view these things. Yeah, so that was the biggest one for me. It just jumped out and thought, oh, okay, well, that's going way up the ranking for me then.
It's a way more interesting episode in retrospect for me. Like going back to it, it's not there. I guess what the difference is, like there are many other episodes in this season alone that I would rather watch or rewatch than that one. But it's a very ambitious episode. Just like the amount of locations that were there, like the amount of backgrounds and like all the different locales they went to, all the background characters and voice actors. And again, technically, it's the first episode that has all 4 types of bending in one episode. You know, it's a big world building episode for me. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But for me, the only episode, or the episode that I definitely changed my opinion on, is Batsa of the Water Tribe. Because before I watched this, I thought that was a better episode than it was, more or less. Like looking back on it, they definitely tried to throw a little bit too much into that singular plot. It's fine. It's not like a bad episode. It's just nowhere near as good as I remember it being. That said, I still love the fight between Aang and Zuko.
Oh, absolutely. It was funny because we talked about that episode ahead of doing the actual Fanalysis, and I had a much lower opinion of it. I always remembered it being because I disagree with the way they handled Aang's situation in that episode. That was one of the prevailing memories for me, and to the point where I had actually forgotten that fight. Yeah, to the point where I actually forgotten that fight was attached to that because my prevailing memory was the negative. So my opinion definitely went up for that one.
But the opposite. Like, I love that fight so much. I was like inclined to like defend the whole episode, and in my mind, that aspect with Aang, I was like, I can justify that. I get what he's doing. It's like, no, you know what? I don't get what he's doing. It's like, it definitely was like, and I do to a degree. I understand, like on a thematic level, what that was supposed to be. Just it wasn't handled all that well. Yeah, there's little moments too, like you pointed out, like when that one messenger shows up and just gives like rando Aang like the military message, like here you go. You know, it's just it's very bizarre. Yeah, plot convenient stuff.
But stuff like this always comes out when we go in with the analytical headspace.
And shady Iroh. Like Iroh's really shady in that episode.
Yeah.
Like almost out of character, but like it's the only time he's like that. But anyway, what we're moving on to next?
Standout comments from podcast.
Okay. So there
was 3 we had. The first one that we had came. I'm not sure who it came from, but it was just the Northern Air Temple.
This is more like a conglomerate.
These are conglomerate comments. Yeah, these are something we noted from the episodes.
We noticed that we all liked that episode. Okay, the Northern Air Temple, but it wasn't like anybody's favorite. It was like the audience's like one of their favorites. Like many people like, we love this episode. Like you said they're comparing it to one of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah, they were talking about how epic it was and your Minister of kind of scale thematic battle, and I was like, well, what? You loved it this much? It was surprising. To each their own. I completely understand the appreciation for it.
It does have a pretty cool battle, I guess.
It just, to us, it didn't stand out as anything special. It was always, it was an alright episode. But yeah, lots of people jumped to its defense, so it was interesting reading that in the comment section.
Yeah. I don't think any of us really talked too much shit about it. We all liked it okay. It wasn't like a terrible episode. It's just not at like,
we just didn't sing its praises like we were with everything else, because like pretty much all of book 1 was just like, oh, amazing, oh my god, what are they doing, oh my god, genius layers.
Which is surprising as well, because I didn't think we'd have so much to talk about as much as we did to talk about book 1 specifically, because obviously whenever you're thinking about Avatar, a lot of the book 1 material kind of falls through the cracks because it's overridden by everything that comes later. So when we went through each episode, I was pleased to see how much we could discuss and enthuse about, and by that part in the series, it's directly before the finale. This episode, the Northern Air Temple just kind of felt a bit, again, not bad or anticlimactic at all. It was a solidly good episode. In fact, it was a very good episode. It's just it wasn't delivering anything that was particularly unique by that point in the series. So it was kind of fell flat a bit.
I agree, and it's also weird because like jumping to like our next like mass comment, it followed directly the Deserter, and a lot of people didn't like Zhang. We found out I'm judging from our comments.
Like we were saying before, it's okay that they can be wrong.
Yeah,
yes, definitely.
It's like the general impression I got was that people felt like the adversity in that episode was like they didn't like it. Like some people actively said that it somehow dragged the episode like a step back, or it took the plot like back. It halted the progress train that our characters were on. It's like, this is called drama, you know. Like, I mean, I thought it was really strong, and he to me is definitely the most memorable, or one of the most. I forgot about Ko. He's one of the most memorable. I forgot about the most memorable character.
Yeah.
Whatever, make fun of me later. He's one of the most memorable, like, one-shot characters or ancillary characters for me, definitely, and extremely well voiced. You know,
because
I love that.
He is one of those characters that you could remove from the series and almost nothing changes. He doesn't have that much impact on the narrative, but he has always been someone that stood out to me as one of my favorites. You know, like, as you said, of the ancillaries, because he has so much gravitas and so much to say that we kind of need to hear at this point in the story, and delivered in such a thematic and dramatic and impressive way that I just love it. I eat it up. But yeah, so many people seem to oppose to his kind of not grittiness, but you know, he's a broken man at this point. He's not quite.
Yeah.
He's got his own arc to go through, and we never see that on screen. Perhaps that's why people have such a problem with it. I don't know, but they definitely didn't seem to like how he treated Aang, and for me, it felt very natural and believable.
I totally agree. Like, somebody actually, like, compared him. I can't remember who said this, but somebody compared him to, like, Paku, and it was like, Paku's like no,
Paku's
like,
way worse.
Yeah, way worse. Because, like, Zhang, and it was interesting because this came up in the discussion. I think Antoine brought this up initially, but is one of my favorite parts of the discussion was juxtaposing Zhang's life story with Iroh's, and like how you get two completely different flavors of, like, Firebending Master, where Iroh's enlightened or whatever, and Zhang's, you know, embittered for understandable reasons,
and a recluse.
Yeah. And my particular part of that in sort of subtopic of the discussion itself is the fact that we feel that we know that they've met, and also that the flaw of Zhang is the fact that he hasn't gone through Iroh's journey. You know, he still needs to meet the dragons. You know, he still needs to learn that final lesson that there is to learn about firebending. Because while he is a master, he still carries this kind of this idea of darkness in him that he doesn't like his bending. He sees it as this burning curse. And the fact that Iroh doesn't have that—that's the distinction. And I like how, you know, so close he is and yet so far.
That's always an interesting character dynamic, pretty much in anything ever, was like when you have somebody who's skilled at something, but they hate that thing about themselves, you know?
Because it's so often attached to who they are, because to get so skilled at something, you have to well, not always, but in most cases, you have to have a certain point of investment in it, which, you know, defines who you are to an extent.
Because
which makes it just so dramatic.
They're struggling to not have this aspect of their life define their life, you know, even though it's like their bread and butter. It's like what they do, you know. So it's like this catch-22.
He is the deserter. You know, he broke away from doing what he did best and left and just tried to find his own way in the world. And the fact that he's struggling with that is what makes him so compelling for me. And the interaction between him and Aang so believable and engaging. But yeah, people didn't seem to be as interested in it. It seems, which I found interesting.
Which I will say, it seemed like more people were like critical of his character than the actual episode.
Yes.
So like maybe people like still found value in like those moments where like Aang learned something, or figuring out that guitar is a healer, you know, like whatever the confrontation, and like the quality of the animation was like
stellar.
Way better than I remembered it being. Yeah. It was like movie level, like for me, feature like film quality for anime. But yeah, I mean, maybe people appreciated things other than him, but they didn't make that clear in the comments. But yeah, that happened.
All right, so next up, we're going to talk about both our least favorite and our most favorite episodes. We're going to do a top 10 and a bottom 3.
I just realized they did not come up with a list of least favorites. That was dumb. Okay, well, number one's easy. Anyway, I'll get into that. Wait, somebody go first, because I just realized I didn't do that.
Well, my 3 are Bottle of the Water Tribe, The Boy and the Iceberg, and The Great Divide. The Boy and the Iceberg is only there because other episodes are better than it, not because it like deserves to be on the bottom in any like, you know, case. It's just that I'm just like, oh, yeah, it's the pilot episode, and it's like, okay, yeah, like you got me into it, but it's not an episode on its own that I'm like, you know, super jazzed about rewatching all the time, you know. And then with Bato, I think that one's there for me because Aang, it's the only time I think he's written out of character in a way, or from what we've seen from up until that point, he wouldn't make the actions that he did in that episode, and it kind of bugs me. And then The Great Divide, while I don't think it's actually like super terrible, and it is definitely filler, it's just again not one that I would want to watch over and over. And it's kind of silly, like the solution and the resolution of that episode that Aang kind of comes up with.
Yeah, I followed the same mindset with how I chose mine as well. And it's interesting because they're exactly the same as yours. These are the three episodes I did in the same order as well, in the same order, which is very interesting. But these are the episodes I would want to rewatch least, effectively. There are episodes with worse moments. There are episodes that I think are less impactful in general. But I enjoyed them more, basically. So that's how I've decided the kind of ordering of these lists. And yeah, so exactly the same with me. Those ones, did not expect that.
I will go ahead and make it unanimous because, and it's not like because I just didn't do my homework, which I didn't, but like I don't disagree with what's been said. I mean, even though I think that the episode that I probably called out the most as just not being one I enjoyed was Jet, but that's a like quality episode that I would easily rather rewatch that after having discussed it, and there are aspects of it that I really enjoy than any of the ones you just listed. So and like Bato again, I used to like that one, and it's fallen off of its lofty perch for me, even though it's got some good moments. But as an episode, I think it's sort of poorly written.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something you have to take away from this. Like we aren't acknowledging specific moments in the overall whole. So if one episode, I mean, many times on my list, for example, there's a moment in an episode that I think is way better than anything from another episode ahead of it or below it rather. But it's just or the other way around, whatever. It's just not just not enough to carry it through for me. You know, the overall enjoyment of the episode isn't necessarily carried by it. Although there is a particular instance where that is the case. So it depends on how good the moment is, I suppose.
And there are other episodes that we didn't just mention that I definitely have problems with, like issues with, but I would still rather rewatch them than those. So yeah,
they have something else that draws us in, which I guess we'll talk about in favorites if they happen to be in that list.
Right,
so number 10, Callan, what's your first number 10?
What's your number 10 is Winter Solstice Part 1, The Spirit World, which I very much enjoy as an episode. I had a lot of difficulty placing all of these on my list because I was looking at them and going, oh, but that moment is better than this moment, and then one day I might like this more, and it was so my entire list is very fluid. It's very liable to change, with the exception of the top, standout sets. But this one I just edged it out. Basically, I looked down the list of all of the episodes in the book one season, and I thought, yep, that has to make the list, and it would just happen to be at the bottom of it for my enjoyment level.
And that's just one off of me. That's actually my number 11, so I didn't actually make my list, but that was like we're very right close. There, very close. Yeah. What was it for you? It wasn't on your list at all for you, Matt?
Not on my list, no. But I mean, it could have been. I think it's as good as some of the ones on my list. I just like moments in them better. Part 1.
What is number 10?
Spirit World. Oh, what is yours? Like, did you?
Well, mine is the Warriors of Kyoshi.
Okay.
That one has about like 2. What is that? Your number 10?
That's my number 9.
Oh, it's number 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that one, it even if you look at the finale, it has like 2 or 3 different finales. Like it resolves itself. Like it resolves 2 or 3 different kind of plots. And even the ending, I think the battle on Kyoshi, I think, was the first time we saw Aang kind of doing his duty as Avatar and him being a hero in a sense, because so far we didn't, up until that point, we haven't really seen it. And that whole sequence, the music that's a part of it, the kind of the gravity of what Avatar, not Avatar, but yeah, he's Avatar, but Avatar Aang felt for that situation. I thought that one really had a lasting effect on me.
There's a funny thing when you say it's his first time being a hero too, because he spends the episode being hero worshipped and like actually has to actually become that. Yeah, I mean it's definitely like sort of background character competence. I think that was a big thing you mentioned.
That's actually one of the biggest things I love about the episode.
Like this island of warriors.
Yeah,
you know what
you
they're doing,
actually
right?
see
like,
them do it. Yeah, like, even to the point where one of them knocks Zuko off his rhino. No name character does that. It's like thank you, brilliant storytelling and just general episode design. It's also one of the most self-contained episodes. It's like one of the best single point, know nothing about anything else in the series episodes that you could almost just watch independently by itself. Very much enjoyed that, to the point where it's slightly higher up my list.
It's I think it's also the moment. I might be wrong about this, but I feel like early on in the series, like Sokka had like this sexist bent to him, and like they kind of wrote that out as of that episode. And well, it's like that's like the 4th episode, right?
Yes,
I think it is.
Yeah.
So it's super early in the series, and they just introduced the character, and they like wrote out this quality of his basically. But it was done in a way that actually, while it may have been a little bit rushed, it's believable, and the character that sort of takes him out of that does become like his romantic partner as the show goes on. So it's not like just some random throwaway moment. It's a piece of like an actual story, you know. Like I'm struggling with it.
It's attached to his kind of arc, effectively. There's
Yeah,
a reason for
yeah,
it.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
because his
It's
sexism
part of
was
the
always
continuity.
his sexism was always ham-fisted and out of place, really. But the way they did, well, you said it was very rushed because it was in single episode. The way they did it was definitely enough that you bought it and it kind of made sense and helped reinforce both characters involved.
I'm totally okay with him having that like epiphany or whatever, or that growth in one episode. It's just like we just met these characters, and like he just had this growth like 2 episodes after we met him, you know. So I think that it's a little bit rushed in that sense, but it's fine because I don't like that quality of him anyway. So get that out of there.
Yeah.
But my top 10 episodes.
Sorry. I just want to say the book
we know
did a
you're
lot.
9, but we don't know you're 10.
Yeah, sorry. The book did a lot to actually reinforce soccer's progression very early on as well, didn't we? I mean, we said in the first few episodes that there's a lot of soccer episodes here, which is what kind of seemed to be a focus for this early book.
My top 10, ironically, is Jet. Like it just barely makes my top 10, but it's better than a lot of book 1. Than like qualitatively, you know, and in terms of whether or not I would rather rewatch it than the other ones, maybe not, but there's so many moments I would rather rewatch than the moments that are in other episodes that didn't make my list. Like that fight between Aang and Jet is amazing. There are even moments where like Sokka's sort of doing his thing. I'm totally on board with Sokka that whole episode. And as distasteful as Jet as a character is for me, I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure that my opinion on it has totally changed because there are moments of it that really are sour for me. But it's not a bad episode. Whereas in my mind, it was. You know, it's like most improved episode for me. You know what I mean? In terms
Jet. Yeah, Jet for me was 7, and I think I just really like tortured souls, and I really understand where he's coming from, how he can get to the position that he's at, where he's like attacking old men who really aren't
kicking
a
them
real
in the
threat.
face while he's on the ground. You know,
that's
right.
That's
dark.
the thing I point out in that episode. Like I totally buy that. And I actually think that's the most believable thing for somebody like him. It's the fact that his teammates are all like these, oh, I guess we'll follow the leader. And it's like, you guys fucking suck. Like, I just don't care about their redemption. They could go to jail. They could be executed. They could become good guys, which is what they do. I don't care. Like, I'm just so divorced from, like, what they actually, where they go, because I don't care about their characters. But I totally buy Jet. Like, he's, like, not my problem with it, even though I don't like him. It's, like, people around him.
Yeah. You don't have to like his actions, but, like, as a character, I think it's very compelling to see those kinds of people become who they become. I mean, also just the episode itself, like, the part where Longshot, you know, is about to blow up the dam, and they have, like, the music cut out, and there's this huge drama to it. I think that was really well done. Like you were saying before, the fight between Jet and Aang with the trees and stuff like that.
Just
very
the location.
Crouching Tiger.
Just the location itself,
great.
yeah.
The kind of
lighting
autumnal setting.
scheme of it, was very nice. The orange, which I felt like you could feel the Fire Nation was there, even though I think it was orange because that's what the forest was at the time. But I feel like, you know, adding on to that, it was a color scheme for like the Fire Nation being encroaching on that village. But yeah, that one's not like top 5, but it's higher on my list.
Right. I'll go as far as to say that I think it's better than the majority of other episodes in book 1. I'm not sure exactly where I would put it, like in an objective sense, but like in a technical sense, it's like one of the better episodes they did this season. They're just the ones on my list that outclass it, or ones I would enjoy more, basically.
Definitely, yeah. In terms of single point quality, as well as, like I said, the technical stuff with the animation and the art style and everything, it is definitely one of the best. It just didn't make my list personally because of the enjoyment factor. Because mine's all about which ones would I like to rewatch most. Definitely not the objective analysis, because some of these episodes do not deserve to be on that list. So it's important to make that clear.
All right, so moving on to number 9, unless we haven't had overlaps. I mean, we've dealt with all our overlaps so far. So number 9 for me is the water bending scroll. I enjoy that probably because of the pirates.
That's good.
I must admit.
We're one off. That's my number 8.
Oh, that's number 8. Oh.
It's also my number 8 as well.
Oh my god, that's so sick. That's so sick. But yeah, that it was a fun episode. Like, even though there was some drama, like, you know, you had with Zuko and the necklace moment, which was kind of a cool interrogation kind of the scene. the ending, with the everybody like swindling the other. And it's funny. I always mention Zhao, I think, in that, but he actually doesn't even appear.
He's not in that, yeah. Which I get it because it's on the water, but you could use that with the pirate stuff because he's admiral or commander at this point, whatever he is.
Right. And then Iroh also at the shopping. Well, I think the reason that they're there is because for his Pai Show, White Lotus trinket or whatever, and like that, it's just fun. It's a cool episode to go back to and just kind of enjoy, just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean it's so funny. Like it's one of it's. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was just gonna say it's very jam packed. The amount of stuff going on in that episode without it feeling overbearing or just clogged with different things that are happening at once. It's very interesting. Like the fact that it can streamline what's happening with so many elements to it, as well as delivering on the comedy without damaging the kind of threatening tone, while also working on the character moments. There is a lot going on in that episode, to the point where it almost doesn't feel like 20 minutes. It feels like longer.
It's true. It makes excellent use of its time, and it's I stand by my feeling that The Great Divide is the only true filler episode in all of Avatar, because like it just doesn't have an impact on anything outside of that episode. This one it's not the most consequential episode, but it's not irrelevant at all. It's like there is that waterbending scroll basically helps explain why Katara sort of grows as a waterbender, without being Mary Sue, and it's really well animated. I really love that scene where they take off in Aang's glider. That looks like something out of a movie to me. Just how realistic that is, where they map the motions of them like almost riding a kite, basically. And the interesting thing is like it has the potential to feel like this is our villain of the week, episode, or like this is just another. But it doesn't feel that way because like you have Zuko sort of. That's where he takes the necklace from Katara. Or no, that's when she gets it back, right? No, she gets.
That's
when this is when he shows it.
This is when he's like, yeah.
So you get the hint that like he is the antagonist, but he's not necessarily like, I'm the villain. He's doing this for a reason. Like, and you sort of paint that against like just the avarice and greed of like the pirates around him. So it's like he has another antagonist to bounce off his motivations from. So it feels like there's like this depth under it, and it's just fun. It's like a fun episode.
Right.
I really enjoyed that one.
And so much to it. I mean, you mentioned the chase sequence. That's a whole part of the episode that you wouldn't necessarily think of at first. But yeah, that took up time, and it doesn't feel like it because of the way it's paced and the way it flows into the episode. They use their time exquisitely in that. Arguably the best that they ever do, at least for the first book.
It's just what happens when they go shopping.
Yeah.
Even that's an adventure.
Exactly.
Like that's all it is. Yeah.
I mean, even the scene in the ship takes a fair amount of time, but doesn't feel like it. It's very, very impressive as an overall paced episode.
So that was both your number 8s? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that was number 8.
That's crazy. That's so funny.
Which is kind of okay, because my number 9 was Warriors of Kyoshi, which we already kind of talked about for the most part. But Callan, your number 9 is a mystery at this point.
Yes, my number 9 is probably going to surprise people, because most people put this higher up the list, but this, or lower down, depending on your perspective, I guess. It's The Blue Spirit. Which for me,
number 2.
That's okay. I'm all right with that.
Which for me, again, this is not. We're not talking about objective quality here, which would be very difficult to decide in the first place. But I know that certain episodes that I like higher up do not deserve to be in terms of objective overall quality. With The Blue Spirit, it should be higher up on that level. But for personal enjoyment, I look back on the episode and I think, what happened in that episode? And I'm like, I mean, everything is great. I love it. But in terms of other stuff that I've seen elsewhere, it loses out to things that I find more engaging. I mean, including stuff like the Waterbending Master. I enjoy that overall episode more than I enjoy the Blue Spirit, despite the disparity in themes, in character development, and all that jazz. But again, individual moments stand out. For example, the Zuko and Aang scene at the end is extremely powerful and one of the iconic moments of the entire series.
Me, honestly.
Yeah, but that single moment isn't enough to carry it through for me. Where others are, and other less impressive moments are arguably, or less impactful moments arguably are enough to carry some episodes through. This one, just in terms of personal enjoyment, isn't for me.
Do we want to talk about it properly now, or address it later? Because it's like later.
Yeah, address
in
it
my
later, because you both have it higher up on the list. So we'll get to it when I imagine yours will both align more than mine did.
Okay. So Antoine, like you're the only one that we don't know number 8 for, I think, right? Because Callan and I both had Waterbending Scroll. Yeah.
My number 8 is the fortune teller, and not just because of our discussion, but I guess partly because of our discussion, because I do like the episode because of the nature of the fortune telling aspect in the episode, but also the ending which is a very simple thing, but just Aang taking out or withstanding the volcano, and then Sokka standing back and be like, I kind of forget sometimes. Because I'm kind of Sokka in that moment, because
Yeah.
you always see Aang as just like this kid, throughout the
I
entire
agree,
show,
yeah.
and just being silly, and you're like, wait, this kid's the Avatar, and he's pretty powerful. Like like he this is his job right here. Like he's at work right now. Like this is his job right now.
Yeah.
And for that, and then also the way it was animated and everything like that, like it really was impactful for me, like that finale. But then also the episode leading up to it, and the questions of fortune telling and the nature of what Aunt Wu was doing is compelling to me.
I will say that episode is not on my list, but I do really enjoy it, like for the reasons that you mentioned. And like I think a lot of people overrate their favorite characters, like Aang being like one of them in terms of like combat prowess. Like he's great, don't get me wrong, but like there's people that act like, oh, he's the best Avatar ever, no one can touch him. He's like everybody.
He definitely.
And it's like,
overrated.
dude, no. And it's like, and that's like one of the episodes that in my head I was always like, wait, he fought a volcano? Like, is that why he's so overrated? Because like Roku died doing that. It's like, oh no, but he's fighting like at the bottom of like in the trench of the volcano. He is not in the thick of like Mount Doom like Roku was, So it makes sense, Like I liked that it holds up under scrutiny, and even though it's hugely impressive, it's not to the point that it diminishes what other people do. So I really like that part. And I liked the fan interaction of that discussion. That was fun, like doing that poll, and our fellow fan Callan,
yeah. I did not enjoy that episode for that reason. To me, the Aunt Wu stuff just irritates me. For the same reason it irritates Sokka, But I'm right with Sokka throughout that episode. And as you can see, if anyone hasn't watched it, go watch that episode as we cover it, because we didn't realize it was going to be as contentious as it was. But we had a big debate and discussion about about Aunt Wu that just came out of nowhere.
It's funny, we were both with Sokka, but for different reasons. I'm with Sokka because of his awe of Aang, and then
I firmly insist that you don't quite accept is that us being with Sokka doesn't mean that Wu has to be wrong.
I do get that, of course. But I just mean that in terms of my perspective on her as a character, it also happens to be the same one as Sokka's. Not because it's Sokka and because Sokka's saying it, just happens by happenstance. But that whole thing just came out of nowhere. I was not expecting that to be a whole thing, and it was, and that was really interesting for that reason. We spoke about that for about an hour or something similar. The best thing about that episode for me easily is the emotional moment at the end with him. I sometimes forget what a powerful bender that kid is. That really was the absolute best moment in that episode for me, and I loved it. It's one of the best in the series.
I just remembered there was one comment that was, "What's up with you guys not liking papaya?"
Oh yeah,
there's a papaya lover in the comments.
It tastes weird.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm sorry.
It has a weird aftertaste. I don't know.
Although oddly enough, like I was so fascinated by this, I was like, so all three of us don't like it. Like, who eats this? And so I went on YouTube, and apparently you're supposed to more or less let that thing ripen until the point that it like looks bad, but it tastes better in that state. And some people say it tastes like coffee. They say it tastes like coffee, which I'm fascinated by.
Bizarre.
I want to try it just for that reason.
I think the commenter himself, I'm sorry we didn't look up your name ahead of time, or we didn't think of it, that they mentioned a way of preparing it, or a type of meal to have it with or something. I vaguely recall that anyway.
He just said that he puts tahini on it, but that's not that's not really my that's not what I'm thinking. Like, I don't think that would fix it for me.
That was a funny thing that was commented on. I like the little random fan discussions we have about the smallest things. But yeah, that was
number
that one.
7, which I already said was Jet, and we discussed already. What was you guys' 7?
This is where I placed Warriors of Kyoshi. I placed it higher up the list because of
okay, so that's where your Kyoshi shows up. Okay,
all the reasons we mentioned previously, but just I appreciate them more personally in terms of my enjoyment. The whole no-name characters having impact. I love Suki as a character; she's one of my favorite in the series. The beginnings of the arc that her and Sokka share as characters, all that jazz. It's and the fact that it's a super self-contained episode. I really enjoy.
I like to see why you think that too for Suki, because I mean, obviously we only have her in the one episode here, but going forward, I don't really think about Suki all that much when I think about Last Airbender. So I'd like to, see what you like about her in ongoing
in future.
Seasons.
Yeah. Like, I was spoken about Callan with it, because this is what always happens with Callan. Like as soon as these cameras shut off for our podcast, we continue on talking just because that's what happens. So I've said to him, like, Suki's not one of my favorite characters just because like there's so many other better ones. Sorry,
but more time.
I really like she doesn't have that much time with them, but she her romance with Sokka is easily the best pairing that is in either of these two series, as far as I'm concerned. And counting Korra in that, not hard to beat Korra on that.
Well,
level,
it's
but...
easy on that level. Yeah, on that
Yeah.
level, it's very easy.
But yeah, I mean, I buy them. So like, she's memorable to me mostly for that reason. And she's a badass, but she's just not in that much of the series. But yeah. So that was, what did you say? Warriors of Kyoshi was your number 7.
Yeah, that was my number 7. Yeah.
Antoine's yours is covered. You said
It was Jet.
It was Jet. Okay. For me, number 7 was, and I almost didn't put this episode on the list, but then I remembered I had to. Siege of the North Part 1. Which
that
might
one's
seem
really low on my list.
See, it's not for me because like half of the episode is just kind of standard in terms of animation quality and just sort of the subject matter, what's going on. But as soon as he goes into the spirit world and we meet Ko, I'm like, ooh, this has to be my top 10. I love this stuff. And it also has Katara versus Zuko for like the first real time. So yeah. I mean, it's
kind of similar to Callan, where he was like, the stuff in the Blue Spirit didn't elevate it for him. Yeah, for me, like it's that, but for Ko, like I love Ko, but it didn't elevate it for me. Yeah.
If the whole episode was as good as that fight and the Ko stuff, it would be like way like lower or towards the bottom end. But it's not, like, because like the actual stuff, the actual siege part, I'm like, this is all right. That's like a good chunk of the episode.
No, for me, I don't actually have this on the list. Which is interesting because the Ko stuff for me is one of the best in the series. But the
best Fable-like stuff. But Avatar.
There's another episode that I think is carried by a moment that will come up in a bit. But the reason I don't have it placed on the list the same way I do that other episode is because the Ko scene isn't as inherently necessary for the episode as a specific moment. Don't get me wrong; it lends a lot of importance to what's happening and discussing and stuff. But the actual the design of that scene is kind of self-contained in its quality. It could have been anything else, and the plot device would have been carried through in the same way. It just wouldn't have been as interesting. So for me, it's kind of like an independent vacuum of quality rather than affecting the overall whole.
I mean, I get it. I almost left it off my list, but like I mean, it's definitely not my favorite. But that stuff is so strong and stuff I would easily revisit any chance I could that it had to go on my list somewhere.
It's such a good scene. Twee and La, push and pull, just swaying and it's beautiful.
I'll see you again.
I never will.
I know, and it never shows up.
Yeah, that's
true.
Ultimate disappointment.
Even though, but I mean, he could be right. He's just talking about some other Avatar that.
That's what I always assumed.
Yeah.
But it still would have been nice to see him in Korra or something. Anyway, but
totally.
What's your number 6?
My number 6 is Southern Air Temple, which I like for its introduction of the true introduction of the parallels between Zuko and Aang. It's kind of the predecessor to the Storm in that way, the kind of first step on that journey, and pairing them as antagonist and protagonist in a way that we haven't quite seen before, at least not in this way.
Yeah, the Storm is like when we see like that's like the actual plot is like the parallels between them. This is just like, oh, okay, Zuko has like a B story in a lot of episodes, and he's a main character too, I guess. Okay, he's not just a villain. Southern Air Temple is like on my list, but it's like a little further up. Not much further up, but a little further up.
Mine's number 3 for Southern Air Temple.
Okay.
Cool. I mean, it's also very strong for the emotional moment with Aang and Gyatso. Yeah, that was another big thing that looking down the list. What happened to that episode? And it stood out immediately, so it gets placed there for that reason.
Is that also it's also the Zhao versus Zuko. Yeah, so I like it. That's what I liked about it. It was the stuff that actually happened at the temple that got me for sure. That's what really hit me, and I was like, okay, this is like where the show's like, oh, we're gonna get a little bit more serious about this. We're gonna talk about some genocide. We're gonna talk about Aang and showing his entire people gone.
And showing the skeleton, which is a huge deal for that type of show aimed at kids. That's really powerful and impactful.
And the animation quality, like from like the first 2 episodes, it's like a huge jump. Like this one, I believe had to, even though it's like the 3rd episode. Is it? It's third or 4th?
It's the 3rd one.
Where's King of Omashu? That's number 5, right? Yeah, it's the 3rd episode.
5th. It's after Warriors.
Yeah. This is like, even though it's early in the series, I believe that they probably animated it later. Like, because it just looks a lot better than a lot of the other episodes in the season. And the music The music is great. Like that sort of scary swelling music when Aang's in Avatar state, pissed off mode, and also Zhao versus Zuko music, which
Yeah,
is
it's
I
probably when
think
they got the
unique. I
green
don't
light
think it plays
money.
anywhere else.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
true.
yeah.
It's because they probably got the green light money advance. Like, here's your advance for this. And they're like, oh, cool, let's use it
Ooh,
right now.
pump it straight
Yeah.
into. Yeah, it was definitely the right episode to do that on in terms of the early episodes. It's also the
And
kind of introduction of the Avatar.
I was gonna
kind of
say, yeah, it introduces Roku,
mythos.
not really, but like it shows us Roku's picture,
Yeah.
like her
Right, it was a
statue.
statue.
Lays
Like,
the
we get that-
groundwork for the
yeah,
cycle and,
we
and
get the
kind of how the
concept.
mythos is attached.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot happening in both setting and character development here, which is it's a very good episode. But in terms of just general enjoyment, it places further down my list because of the kind of emotional.
And lest we forget, Momo. Momo shows up.
Oh, of course, yes. Momo
Oh,
introduced.
yeah.
Momo's so forgettable, but at the same time so perfectly included at all times. Like
Yeah.
he's always doing something on screen. It's really well done, and we keep commenting on it. But at the same time, I never think of Momo when I think Avatar. It's just kind of
He's like,
so back. It's weird.
It's like when you cook a meal, you get to like take like little bits like that, like just for you, like this, like the chef's treat or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like he's like the animator's treat. Like he has nothing to do with anything, but I'm just having fun with him. Like like I'm making this. I'm driving the bus. I can do what I want. Like this is a Momo moment. He's just like that's all he is for me.
If nothing
Which I
else,
like.
the fact that he doesn't get in the way is speaks to the quality. It's like, yeah, and yeah. I love that.
Six.
where were we on?
Did everybody
Number
say their six? Yeah.
Oh, mine was. I don't think I did. Mine is Winter Solstice Part 2, which is Avatar
Oh!
Roku.
Me too.
Okay, cool. Like,
We're in the same spot.
yeah. All right, we synced up on one.
I
Yeah.
mean, on subject of Roku, yeah, it's like the first real time we see it, and we kind of see his impact on the Fire Nation itself, because we don't really have that indication of like, did the Fire Nation respect him? Like, what do they think of him? But to see how like in awe they are of him in that last moment, and also that sequencing with the temple, the solstice hitting the sun hitting the statue, which brings him kind of back for that small moment of time. I think it's really cool.
And also, like, just establish like that's the reason why it's able to happen. It's like I can't be possessing you to have you do awesome shit all the time. It's like
All the
it's not
time,
just
right.
one moment. Yeah. It's totally a Gandalf moment. Like you shall not pass. This get out of my temple. It's like it's so cool. I love that.
It's one of the most iconic moments in the entire series. Even standing up with book 2 and 3 moments, it's right up there with memorable scenes that you will always think back to when you think of Avatar. And the execution and the impact of it on the story and the journey that Aang is now taking. It's the true starting point of his task. To save the world, and just everything about it is exquisite, and I love it, and for that reason, it's way higher up my list. Just the overall impact it had on me as an episode and its delivery was really, really, really powerful.
See, that's the thing, is like it's that moment that makes it for me. Like whereas like as a whole episode, I would rather watch other episodes.
Right, like the
for
stages
entirety.
and stuff like that is like cool.
I mean, it's fine. It's not bad. It's just there's other stuff I'd rather be watching. Like it's like the total opposite of what you were talking about with like Blue Spirit, Callan. Like that moment is strong for you, but like the whole episode, not really.
Yeah.
Is that the one you were referring to, by the way? When you said the moment carrying the episode, was that the episode?
Oh, this is definitely one of them, but no, that's the
One of
next.
them,
That's
okay.
the next notch for me, which I think people will be surprised about.
Oh, okay. Do you want to take that off?
We're at number 5 now.
Definitely moving to number 5. Okay.
Yeah.
That for me is Imprisoned, which is technically one of the most mundane episodes of this book. It's not really something that you think about. I mean, certainly I didn't when we began rewatching the episodes for the Fanalyses. I was thinking, oh yeah, this is a good episode. I remember it being all right. It's one of the standard ones. And then there's a particular scene which I'm going to do a video on it. So look out for that at some point. That just the execution of it blew me away. It's like, oh wow, this is 10 lines in the space of literally a minute exactly, and it just perfectly marries the impact and emotional and tension of the scene to the overall narrative of the episode, as well as the overall message and theme of the episode. And I thought, wow, that's just really, really amazing writing. And the writer, I think it was Matthew something, didn't come back for any of the other episodes in the entire series. So I was like, that's a shame.
I'm sorry, guys.
Because you're a genius.
It was Matthew something. It was me.
It was Matthew Hubbard. Matthew Hubbard was the one. And as far as I'm concerned, that scene alone, he's a genius. And it really carried the episode from how it is perfectly tied to what it's supposed to do as an episode as a whole. It works.
Am I having deja vu? Did we kind of touch on this in this recording earlier?
Yeah, very
like
early
the overall.
Very
okay,
early
all right.
Okay. I didn't know we did.
Pretty sure because I was gonna say like I don't want to repeat everything I said because I'll just suck up time. But yeah, totally. Like it's not one of my favorites, but a very ambitious episode, and I respect it. I like it a lot. It's just not my top 10. You know.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm on the other end of that, which is like it's still kind of like a whatever episode for me. I kind of like almost forgot about it already. I know that Picard like tries to get the people out, and like they kind of don't. His father had a cool voice. Kind of, I don't like. The one thing I did think was pretty cool is that I think it was when his mother or his grandmother, I can't remember who it was, came to see Katara, and there was like a quiet moment of like, oh, this thing happened. They didn't have to actually verbally say it, but you understood the impact of it. Yeah. You know, like that was pretty cool.
It definitely had some strong moments though, like Katara's speech going nowhere. Like that's very adult and realistic, and so yeah, like there are things I do remember about it. It's just not one of my favorites at all, but I like it.
Yeah, that was my number 5.
Oh, you're 5, right?
That was his number 5. What's yours?
Mine is the Siege of the North Part 2, the finale of the entire season. I love what they were doing with the animation of like turning it first red and then black and white, stripping it of all color except for the firebending. That stylistically was really great. I like the kind of choices that Zuko made, you know, because we're starting to understand already, you know, throughout the season, we get that he's more than just the typical villain, you know, mustache twirling kind of, he's not that at all. But it's just seeing his progress. And even at the end of the episode where like Iroh said, you know, a man needs his rest, and you see him just like, and you see him struggle so much just to get to where he is and still not really succeed. And for him just to be like, you know what, I'm finally just going to like, you know what, I've done as much as I can this season. Let me just lay back and like relax. His final confrontation with Zhao, I like a lot. Of course, the big koi fish monster, water monster, is a cool sight. But yeah, I think it did really a good job of creating a finale moment. And for me, again, like I said, it's with Zuko that I have the most like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen with that guy next season more than anyone else. It's cool that, you know, Aang is doing what he needs to do. Katara is kind of finding her own way with waterbending. And Sokka's got his own things going on too. But for me, it's always been like Zuko. Like I really want to see where this kid's going, like further from this point on.
That's on my list. It's number 3 for me. Pretty much for like.
I would have had it higher, but it's just that I have like Blue Spirit, you know, Storm, Deserter, you know, I love it.
Yeah, see, Blue Spirit's my number 5. Like it's that's the one we were actually on.
Right.
That was your number 5. Okay, yeah. So 5. Blue Spirit's my number 5. Did we already talk about it? Like, did it come up?
We talked about it
I think I did, but I don't think you have yet.
It's mainly number 1. I think is a very stylish episode. It gets across a lot without like loads of dialogue. There's relatively little talking going on, even though like there's literal moments where like the bad guy's giving a speech and like there is talking. It's not silence. But the fact that Zuko doesn't say anything pretty much for like except for the very beginning and very end of the episode. A lot of his storytelling has to be done just non-verbally. So yeah, just him going ninja and going in there and that mystery of like, who is this guy? Which didn't work universally. I think, Callan, you said you knew who that was. Like,
yes, well, it was a case of me thinking, well, this has to be him, and then I thought, but if it is, they've thrown a red herring in the way, you know, they got that kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally remember not knowing who that was when I first watched it, and being like, the mystery was preserved for me, and the most eerie thing about it was like, what is this person's motives? Because like they're clearly saving Aang until the moment they're not, when they cross the blades at his neck, and it's like, oh, what's going on here? Like it was just a very thrilling moment. It's also Zhao being sort of calculating. Well, yeah, but in that moment, like where he's like, this situation calls for precision, and it's like let him out. Like he's like, he almost had a good plan. He didn't have a recovery squad out there, but like he was thinking.
Let's not forget the frogs too. Let's not forget
the silly frogs. Yeah.
And the archers, the very effective archers,
yes,
like going back to the Kyoshi Warriors and
being in the series more. Like those are, as far as I'm concerned, that is like an Azula themed thing. Like she would have taken that like right over. It's like, you guys are on my squad.
I need a
like
small elite team. Yeah. I'm not going to use them.
Exactly.
I'm going to just use you two.
I'm not gonna use them. Yeah, I need an elite team, except for the super elite. They stay wherever. Like
they can be bodyguards.
And that moment at the end, of course, the moment where Aang's talking about his friend Kuzan from the Fire Nation, and like it's a total one-way conversation. Zuko says nothing, but it's so powerful because he's clearly thinking about what Aang has said. Like when he goes back to his ship and he's like in bed thinking about it, staring at the Fire Nation emblem on his wall. Yeah,
who am I
very
fighting
strong
for?
episode.
Who am I? Like all that stuff is going through his head. It's great. Yeah.
Why am I doing
and
this?
it also has Iroh's Sungi horn as like transitions.
Oh, that is beautiful
like,
as he walks past, and that perfect blend of diegetic and non-diegetic. It's and this show is amazing with that.
5? I think we don't have 5 for you, Callan.
No, 5 was in
Did we
prison
not?
for me. I was the first one.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So then number 4. What's your 4 then?
Mine's going to make waves, I think, on this one because it's not in any way, shape, or form deserving of the spot. Literally make waves.
Now I'm interested.
Yeah, in no way deserves the spot on an objective level because I can't even defend it. I can't even defend it on on a rational level. Really, it's just emotional for me. Take a guess.
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me see. Emotional for you.
Not in like an emotional impact, just emotional enjoyment. And
I feel like we're gonna have something similar. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna be crazy.
I'd be surprised.
I don't know what it. I don't.
Yeah,
can't think what
okay. The answer is the waterbending master, which is a completely like bad episode compared to everything else we discussed around, and certainly what comes ahead of it. But in terms of my enjoyment, even way back in the day and even up to now, the fight between Katara and Pakku is one of my favorite in the entire series. I think it's so dynamic, it's so powerful. It could have been blent more subtly and better to the whole conflict of the show for Katara and Pakku, because Pakku was handled poorly in terms of his idea. You know, the sexism thing in the culture, perfectly fine concept, but it needed much better execution, much better delivery, and more importantly, much better resolution, which was really weak. But take that out and headcanon fill that in with a better replacement, and I think this is an extremely strong episode based on the single moments that happen throughout. One of the biggest being Zuko's assassination attempt. The assassination attempt against Zuko. That ship blowing up is. I rewatched it and I was like, wow, that is like one of the strongest moments of the entire series for me now. Just the way they execute that is exquisite. It's genius. With the tension and the animation and the detail of him shielding the fight, everything, and just that the visual and spectacle of this episode, if nothing else, carried it for me. Though I definitely, again, want to press it. I do not think it deserves to sit among the episodes we've been discussing around it on an objective level. It's purely just, I'd want to rewatch that again now, kind of thing.
Yeah, this is like a subjective favorite of yours, like, and that's totally fine. No one can argue with that. I mean, you like what you like. To me, it's like it's definitely. I would say it's probably like in like the bottom quarter for me, just because of like the writing for me. It's not as developed as I think it easily could have been, like considering the other stuff that they do in this show.
That's the same for me. It's in the bottom quarter. I'm like eyeballing it right now.
Yeah. But I mean, in that fight, as a kid, I remember like I had like TiVo that episode. It was like summer vacation, and I would rewatch that particular episode. I said in the discussion, I think that like my grandma walked in during like music night or whatever, like when like
music night was also a thing.
Two old dudes were dancing or whatever. She's like, "What the fuck are you watching?" It just was like, I was like, this is not the part of the episode I like.
And she leaves the room just as the fight between Katara and Pakku starting. Naturally,
that's her understanding of Avatar. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but yeah, I remember I would rewatch that fight over and over again, and it's actually aged fairly well. Like it still looks really good. It's just ever since like Korra came along and like the what they did with the waterbenders in that series, it's just like this looks almost like quaint to me. Like I mean, it's still cool, but it's just not. They're like easily a dozen fights I would rather rewatch than this one at this stage in the game. But yeah. I mean, it's just not. It's like it's in the bottom quarter for me, but mainly just because I think I see the areas where there was like a very potentially powerful story going on here. It's just the quality of the writing for me wasn't there, But like you said, you're not even arguing that.
Yeah,
you
no,
just
definitely
like
not. Yeah,
just totally fine.
Just it's a rare example of me just loving it for the sake of the spectacle and the what we're seeing, really.
What? Cameron has a soul?
Yes, it's not all cogs and wheels up here. But yeah, so what was yours then, Anton? Sorry. Or did you say it?
Oh, what were we at
yeah.
number 4? Number 4, the
Yeah.
deserter. And we touched on it a little bit earlier because we will talk about it because it's a really great episode. But the highlight for me is Zhang for sure, and his teaching methods of Aang. It's definitely different from what he's got from Katara, who's definitely more nurturing. It's something like
It's
like
definitely
the
not
talk
Katara.
of firebending. right, exactly. But also just. Again, I just like tortured souls. I like that, he has this self-hate for himself. And that also for me, I guess I'm feeling in kind of like backstory on my own of like him having an adventure that goes along with Iroh a little bit, like both of them failing at Bossing Say, kind of coming back to the Fire Nation, kind of defeated, and also wondering what the heck were we doing all that for in the first place, going out to go against that in a way. What are you going to say?
Oh, no. Yeah, I argue about like headcanon all the time, but it's only like with respect to like, feats and like what people are capable of and like whatever. When it comes to this kind of thing, I don't even want to say him. It's like this world, because of how well they developed it. You can do that, and it almost always has like a feeling of merit. Yeah, as long as you've got like some IQ and you're not going way out in La La Land. When you're a good person and you grew up in the Fire Nation during this time and you report to a guy like Azula, like you're gonna have like an existential crisis at some point. Like that's just what's gonna happen. Like unless you're a sociopath or evil, you know what I mean? Like you can't live your life working for that guy and not having an issue like this. So yeah, I mean it totally works. Whether or not he actually did have an adventure with Iroh, it doesn't matter.
Right,
until he plays.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. But they had the same kind of mentality coming out of it, though they did take different paths for how they deal with that situation. And also, you guys were saying before. I think you were saying before the animation like is reminiscent of like a Miyazaki or like an anime film quality. Yeah, and that's definitely true of like how the wind like was animated. And the leaf, him catching the leaf and burning it. And I like and I love that exercise he gave to Aang. Like okay, don't let this burn the entire leaf. Hold it and control it. I'm like, oh my god, I love training stuff like that, and like small little examples, visual examples like that. Just like really, really, that's pushing the right buttons for Antoine. I really like the episode a lot.
Yeah, I could totally see. I buy Aang being bored by that, but at the same time, for me, like that was thrilling stuff. It was like this is like compelling. Like that's like a test designed by like a firebending master. Like it feels like a test that like belongs in this world, like at this moment in time. And like the animation, please, like it's so good. Zhang's clothing,
that's what I was about to say, the robes when they're climbing the mountain, with the exception of that one frame that fails at the end.
Just that one frame. Yeah.
Where it just goes
and his face is so expressive, and especially for a character with beady eyes, I think that's really hard to do. But they did it.
Yeah,
and,
that's definitely
it's down to the way
the animation of the faces, all of them. Just it's brilliant.
And it's sort of down to the way like he moves. It's like one of the coolest things about like Lord of the Rings is like the way that they did Gollum, and a lot of that is just like his posture. And like Zhang has like a way of like when he's talking, he's never just talking. Like he's moving and he's like hunched over and like he's got like an attitude like to his movements. And it just like this looks like somebody who's like alive. It feels like they mocapped everything with that, not just for like the fights. But yeah, that episode is actually like my number 2.
My number 2 as well.
It's totally on my list. It's just I have it higher up or lower down, however you want to think of that. Oh, it's your number 2 as well?
Yeah, my number 2 as well. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Again, it's just more than anything else, it's the expressions of Zhang, not just his facial, but his like I said, his full-bodied expression. He's so barely contained, like stress, burden, and he perfectly embodies in both his mentality, his visuals, his design aesthetic, the lessons he tries to teach Aang. He perfectly embodies what he's supposed to be in this this again, not quite broken man, but breaking man, if nothing else. He is someone who is trying to get over.
He's not broken yet.
Yeah,
he's not quite.
He's very close. He appears to be, but he's still got that inner strength. He just needs to learn that one lesson, that last piece of the puzzle, and he'll snap it back and become the master that he truly should be. But everything wrapped around him in this episode is perfect.
Yeah, and going hand in hand with that, I don't need to see that. I can just infer that.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't feel like a hole in the story. It just like I expect that will happen at some point, like when the world is better than it is right now. It's not like a flaw in his storytelling to make him work. It's like, that's totally going to happen.
And sometimes a story like that's, or sometimes a story is better leaving things like that just to be imagined, or just to
Yeah.
be like, yeah, that's just flavor for the world that's happening, somewhere. Like
Yeah.
not everything's revolving around Aang. Other people are having their own arcs going on. They're all having their own stuff they're dealing with, which is what I would hope. A lot of I feel like sometimes with a lot of franchises now, they try to explain everything and give you the story for everything instead of just letting you let those people live out their lives, doing their own thing on the side, and I appreciate that for sure.
I totally agree with that. And like a lot of times the answers that they give aren't particularly good anyway. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So it's
just leave it up.
that doesn't help. Yeah.
I mean, arguably, it could have happened before he went and rejoined the White Lotus at the tail end of
That's
the
true.
series as well. It
Yeah,
could
we
have
don't know what he
happened
was
by that point.
doing. Yeah.
This might have been the push he needed to start that journey.
Just the fact that he's part of that group shows that he's like not completely off the just I don't care. Like you don't join a group like that if you don't care.
Yeah. He's just happy to bide his time until he's needed. And yeah, it's just a super powerful character, and he carries that episode. I mean, it's labeled after him, obviously, but yeah, just it's the presentation alone wins it for me.
Right. Number 3 for me was Southern Air Temple, which we went over. I think this we'll start having overlaps where I think we've all discussed things already. But
yeah, like
what was you guys' number 3s?
Number 3 for me. Did we already talk about it? I think it was Siege of the North Part 2.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay, yeah. Because that was your number 5 or 6.
That was my 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Just pretty much for all the same reasons you gave. I mean, it's like it's a very strong
finale.
Zuko episode. Yeah, it's a very strong Zuko episode, and Iroh like busting out the badass.
I forgot Iroh. How did I mention Iroh? Oh my god!
Yeah,
the first time you see like legit like. I'm about to mess you up, Iroh.
Whatever
I'm not joking around. We're not a.
And really,
I will unleash unto you downfall.
You're only gonna see it like maybe 5 times in the whole show. You know what I mean? But it's like and it's never like more than like 1 or 2 motions. But it's always like he's totally like a Dumbledore in that way. I love him. And
Iroh's
like when you're doing like the Iroh's got stuff. But like in the voice acting on that, it's like he meets like he's related to Ozai. Like his niece is Azula.
Right.
Like he deals with like despicable people all the time. But it's like this moment is like the one that's like I'm getting involved here. Like because you're messing with like the balance. And it's like and the Mako. He had such his voice is almost like it feels like it's almost monotone.
Has no intonation.
But it's not. Yeah, but like when he does express it, it's very like frightening because like even a scream isn't really like a scream. It feels like it comes from like the bottom of the throat. Like it hurts him to say, like let it go now.
Yeah,
it's like it's really good.
It's resonant in everything he says. It doesn't matter what he's saying. The impact will always be exactly where it needs to be, and it is such a powerful voice.
And I think he was like a theater actor, which is like where you kind of get those chops.
You've got to project in a theater. You can't keep the subtleties. So it very much helps with voice acting. I'm certain.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like that was pretty much the only thing you didn't mention.
I forgot.
Everything,
oh my goodness! Thank you for mentioning it because God, that gives me all the good feelings.
Number 3 for you, Callum?
Number 3 for me was part 2, Avatar Roku, because it's it's just the finale of that episode and everything about it. The journey it's setting Aang on, the further addition to the idea of the Avatar and what it means for the world. This is the first time we see why the Avatar is the force of nature and balancing power politically that he is. Because if you do something wrong, he turns up and shows you that, and okay. Can literally do nothing to stop that, and we don't just get like a display of power as we would get in every other show. It's the spiritual and emotional thematic impact of that moment, blended more than anything else with the music. The music as he comes out of that room. I mean, it's up there with some of the best I've ever heard from anything ever. It's top. I guess 50 for the number of things I've seen, moments that in my life that I've experienced, and in terms of mediums and narrative, and it's amazing.
It's like he's the hero, but it's like this is scary.
Yeah,
so it's like I mean, it's like that weird mix of feelings.
It's very cool, and just the episode as a whole is brilliant. I had to have it here on my list.
And that brings us to number 2.
Number 2, we just talked about it for you. It was something else. For me, it was a Deserter, and Kellen number 2 was Deserter as well. But
there you go. And then number 1,
Surprise,
which
surprise.
everybody
We all agree. Yeah. Right?
I wonder which one it will be. It is the Great Divide, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Great Divide. Oh
Yeah.
shoot, I forgot all about that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That
pretty
one-
good, that
Episode
one.
0. That's the best. Yeah, that's absolute best. No, you all know it. It's the storm.
It's always going to be the Storm.
It's the duo like backstory. This is the episode of Avatar that you go like, oh my god, this show's special. Like this show isn't just like a cool pseudo anime show. It's not kind of funny. No, this is like a legit like experience I'm about to go through right now. Like that's the show, or that's the episode that gets you into it.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is
one
that
is
that part
art.
in the story. Yeah, it is art incarnate. This places it transcendent above everything else. You know, there are certain shows, certain books, certain films that are so good in so many ways that you just put them up there as like, well, that's one of the best things I will ever experience. And this puts it there. It's every frame, every scene, every character moment is just. It's
That's
genius.
True. I wouldn't cut out a moment of it. I wouldn't change a moment of it. I love it just the way it is. There's so many things. There's not that many things rather like that. Even things I love is like, oh, I would probably lose that scene or I would change this. I love that episode, start to finish. And little things like in the background that don't matter at all that pay off with like Azula in the background watching her brother get burned with like a look of triumph on her face. It's like what the it's like, yeah. It's like, what is wrong with this family? And I love all of that.
The lines are
And getting
Ozai
his
and how they
motivation,
attach
getting
to
Zuko's motivation.
character.
Getting his motivation. And there's no one on the planet, unless something's wrong with your mind, that can't relate to that. Like, maybe that's not your story, but if you can't empathize with him, rather, like, after that, like, there's something wrong, you got some wires crossed, as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to be on Team Zuko, but you have to have some feelings for him after that.
It's an episode that defines who he is, and more importantly, who he will be moving forward, who he will ultimately end up being, without telling you that this is going to happen. This isn't an episode that telegraphs that, he's going to be redeemed and is going to be a hero. It's just, it telegraphs that he has a journey to take, and that they have an idea of what they're doing here. This shows you, okay, I need to see what happens because these creators are geniuses.
It does it subliminally, because it's not like, oh, I was bad until someone showed me the good way. It's like, no, I used to be good until like my dad came, and then it's like, am I going to work my way back to that?
Yeah,
it's like that's the question,
until he told me I was lucky to be born, I was all right. He kind of he broke me a little bit.
Or even the nature of what being good is. Like he doesn't even have an understanding of that, and I think Aang helps him with that. Like just seeing who this boy is and what he's trying to achieve, I think helps him on his own journey to be like, oh, okay. This is what it means to this is what I am trying to get back to, just by seeing what this kid's doing on his own journey.
Yeah, it's the perspective. We see so many different layers of his perceptions and his thought process and how that shapes who he is and what he does. If he hadn't gone on the journey that he does in the very precise steps that he takes, and with most importantly of all, without Iroh, who we again get further details on in this episode with the whole he was the one who led him into the situation in the first place unknowingly, and without Iroh there he would not be the person he is, and it's like it's tragedy given form, this very episode. You see, okay, Zuko, I get where you're coming from then, and you start rooting for him if you haven't been already. It accomplishes so many things, this episode, without ever seeming muddied or just overstuffed.
I really love that it could be so hackneyed or ham-fisted and cliche, but like when Katara gives Aang a pep talk about like how he brings the world hope, and then Iroh's all like the Avatar gives Zuko hope. It's like it doesn't mean the same thing in context, but in like a holistic sense, in terms of like the actual narrative, that is what happens. Like Team Avatar is Zuko's salvation,
And the earnest way Katara herself delivers that line, that could have been really, really cheesy. But she delivers it with such kind of basic earnestness that it just lands. And the whole episode.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the voice actors for Katara at all in any of these. But like, what's her name?
She's also a child, right? Or not a child, but like
she's a teenager for sure. Yeah,
at the time,
and Sokka is as well.
And Aang is a child.
Yeah, he's like Aang age. But yeah, she's very good at somebody who, because she is that. She's probably older than Katara. She's probably like 16 or 17, but she's still very good at playing way beyond her years, which is what
Mm-hmm.
Katara does. It's sort of like the pseudo mom for the group.
Absolutely, and there's like an earnestness to her. That when she says something that anyone else saying it would be cheesy, you just buy it because that's who she is. You know, that's her perspective on the world. And one of the things that lends power to Katara when she flips and doesn't have that, when she loses that perspective, or when she the kind of clarity clouds, it lands so much more impactfully as a result. But everything about the episode, you know, it's as jam packed, if not more so, than the Waterbending Scroll. But instead of being plot kind of hijinks driven, it's all just breathing room. It's all just character growth, impactful, like quiet, character driven scenes that just you don't get anywhere else. You know, this is the best of the best when it comes to just storytelling. You can get, obviously there are loads of things I can think of that are as good, but nothing's better than The Storm as far as I'm concerned. It is the true apex of quality for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if you're gonna do like an origin story, you gotta make it count, and they really did. They made it count.
For sure. And that rounds out our top 10. Now we're going to move on to the little fun thing we want to do called the something something awards. Actually, I didn't realize we have no actual name for the awards.
Just some awards we want to dish out from talking about the overall Fanalyses that we've done as a series.
By the way, if I disappear in a second, it's because I have to move my car, but I'm going to stay as long as I can. But that's what happens if I end up leaving.
No worries.
Just to let you guys know. But our first award we want to give out is so over the course of the 20 episodes we did on the podcast, there have been lots of really good comments. But one of the standout comments we had was on the Jet episode, and it was in relation to what the difference between Jet and Azula, and why one is more hard to swallow than the other one. Who wants to read the comics? It wasn't me who found it. It was one of you guys that made note of it. I don't remember who.
Do you want to go for it, Matt?
It's quite a lot, but I will read it. Okay, so it comes from Max Musterman.
Frequent commenter of the series. Always delivers
he comments on pretty much every episode. Yeah, always has interesting things to say, but this was the standout comment. As far as we were concerned, we found it thought-provoking. And it goes, I always thought that the over-the-top... Oh, wait. I'm sorry. That's like a different issue. Anyway, I'm just going to read the relevant part. I think another reason why Jet is bothersome and Azula is not is that Azula is just a little too good to hit close to home. It is unlikely that you really know an Azula in real life, but you probably know a Jet. Somebody who is competent and charismatic and due to circumstances has a group of self-righteous followers. Everybody knows that you have to be very cautious with Azula, except for the beach episode, but that also shows Azula at her most vulnerable prior to the finale. Azula does not function in a normal, casual environment. Jet does. She does not even have any real supporters, while Jet's men legitimately follow him, as you guys said. While both are equally tragic products of their environment, Azula's nature is recognized in universe, and she has an additional layer of self-reflection and agency that Jet lacks. With him, you really get the sense that he is just misled, which makes him more uncomfortable to watch, but also enables him to change his ways when the situation changes, while Azula just breaks. Jet is like a popular kid at school who undermines your standing in class without realizing he is doing something wrong, while Azula would either completely control you, knowing exactly what she is doing, or she would change schools soon, if that makes sense. Those two characters make for a really nice contrast. So that's the end of the comment. Is basically like why... Because like the original question in the video is like, what is so off-putting about Jet? Like, why don't I like him? Why does he restrict my enjoyment of this episode? I think that about sums it up, because I had mentioned, it's like, Azula does this all the time, and she's like a fan favorite character. Like, why can I tolerate her but not him? And I think that he summed it up really well, where it's like, Azula's too good to be believed almost. Like, there's no 14-year-old on the planet that's that fucking good.
She's a caricature almost in a way.
Yeah. Yeah,
in a good way,
which
but
is
nonetheless not as relatable. We don't have anything like real life equivalent to scale it to, or at least very few people will, because it's, as he says, you can't say it better than Max did. Jet is just someone you've met, which is horrific. I mean, I know a Jet, I know two Jets, and they're irritating beyond belief, and it makes that episode so difficult to swallow, because you know that this happens, and that's frustrating to me, because like I said, the followers are just going along with him and not be completely blind to the reality of how bad a person he is and how far gone he is at this point. And it really is unsettling. I mean, he's going to kick an old man in the face, and they were like, "Yeah, this is fine." And it's like, oh god, if
they're going to hold him down while you do it. Yeah,
if all humanity's problems aren't encapsulated in that one moment, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, it's funny because it's that reality that compels me so much about the character, and it's what like draws me to that storyline, because it is such a true, in a different way than Azula is. Like, yeah, I don't really know an Azula in my life. Jets, I know all the time, and because of that, it's like, whoa, like this is touching really close to me because I can see that actually happening to somebody. Versus with Azula, it's like I don't really. She's just a fun character. Oh, Azula,
right.
you know, like you kind of just can write her off like that.
It's interesting because like as long as you can quantify it, it doesn't matter whether it appeals to you like it does for Antoine or it throws you off like me and Callan. Like you at least know what you're dealing with and you can relate to it some type of way. Whereas like Azula is just like this is not real, but this is entertaining as fuck. You know, like that's the way it is. You know, yeah.
Right. I think you brought up the beach episode because that's going to be one of my favorites coming up.
I can't wait. Yeah. That is such a good episode, despite its
mundanity. And it's interesting that most people bring that up with respect to her, and for me, it's interesting for everyone involved, like everyone involved.
For Zuko as well.
Yeah, and Team Avatar has a plot in that one too, guys. He fought Combustion Man for the first time, and it was awesome. It's fucking cool. Like I love it. It's glorious.
I think it stands out particularly for Azula, that one, because it's such a unique moment.
I know.
It's one line. Yeah, it's one line, and it's like, whoa, okay,
I totally get it.
I
totally get it. But it's like it's not her episode. You know, it's like it's everyone's episode. It's just the way people talk about it. It's like that's why I like doing these, because we can talk about everything that we like about it, and not just the
But yeah, thanks very much, Max, for that comment. And we still might be making. I asked permission for this at the time, but we still might be making a video on it, discussing the different elements. It depends on whether or not we have time, because our schedule is quite clogged at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much for the thought-provoking comment. I hope everyone will aspire to do the same in the future as well, because there have been so many. It was really difficult to choose all the different ones, and I like to see that continue.
And then we nominated one of our.
Then there was award for what? Most controversial episode?
Yes. Yeah, which is not difficult.
So if you're coming in and you're just like watching this as like, oh, we want to check out who these people are, there's a few episodes we will want you to kind of go back to if you want to see like us that are most controversial, and then most of like hitting on all cylinders. One of those episodes is the fortune teller, where we go on a tirade about Aunt Wu and if she's a real fortune teller or not.
Yeah, we were not expecting that.
It's more like just the difference of like the ways that we process information, or it comes down to like what are you inclined to think, you know?
I'm gonna disappear. Be right back.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But yeah, I mean, like, to me, it's very much just it's an interesting way. It said a lot more about us, I think, than it did the episode. Like that's what I found interesting about that discussion.
Yeah, because we both acknowledge the reality of what's going on and what was being presented, but we disagree with the conclusions we formed from that presentation, which is very fascinating, because we're all watching the same episode, and to have such vastly opposed mentalities on what's been presented is just it makes for engaging discussion, if nothing else. I just didn't expect it, because that was the thing that I found so amusing, is that I went in firmly believing that obviously she's not a real fortune teller, and then you both were like, wait, no, well, she is, and we're like, what?
I think that's the thing. That's the thing, is like you clearly were like, well, this is just the way it is, you know, and it's like, well, I kind of feel differently, and like that's what's funny about it, is like it's totally like it's like disagreeing with somebody about like. It's like whether or not water's wet. Like, what are you talking about? You know, it's like that's sort of like the level of the discourse. But I mean, I found it interesting, and I think it is a fun discussion. I've rewatched it myself. You know, I thought it was entertaining.
Let us know in the comments whether or not you thought it was. I know we did the poll saying what you thought of the actual conclusion, but yeah, let us know if you thought the actual discussion was fun, because I hope it was. I like to think that people enjoy our little discussions on these. I'd be interested to see what people's thoughts were if we posted our like 8-9 hour discussions on just everything ever that we go through every time the camera cut turns off.
I think their minds would explode. I don't think that they have time for that.
Yeah.
Well, somebody does. There's at least, just on average, there's probably at least 42 people that would sit through the whole thing. I like, you know, out of all the people, out of all the hundreds or thousands or whatever that tune into us based on our various talks. I think there's probably about 42 that might make it through one of those 8-hour things.
Definitely not in one sitting though, because I don't. I
didn't say that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying. I think that they would bookmark it. I'll come back to this tomorrow, or something.
2 years later,
Somebody
you might
would make
get close to the end if I uploaded them all at once.
I mean, I'm doing a Let's Play of KOTOR on my channel, which I haven't forgotten about, guys. I know it's been like a month. I'm getting back into it. It's like if I add up all the hours, it's probably like 6 or 7 hours long, and I'm still on Terrace. Yeah. And there's like over 1,000 people I've seen every episode. So it's like, okay, some people really don't have anything to do. I'm just kidding. There's somebody who would appreciate that, is what I'm saying.
It's why I like doing these Fanalyses as a whole. The fact that we can engage with fans on so many levels, with just general discussion on things that don't come up in on the average discussion. People obviously enthuse with their fellow fans and their friends about series and films, but rarely do people go through and actually analyze any given topic or character or scene or whatever it happens to be. And we've done that. For once we've actually completed the project, we've done that for the first full book of Avatar. So if nothing else, people can go back and watch them and go, we don't get to talk about this very often. Comment, and I love engaging with them. Please do send them in, guys.
The surprising thing to me is like, I expected more people to be like, oh, these are boring, I don't want to watch it. And I know that these will never be seen by like hundreds of thousands of people, because this is sort of like a niche thing. This is not like them going to be like, trending on YouTube or whatever.
It's not really digestible content. Let's put it that way. It's not really digestible content. Let's put it that way.
No, it's not. But it's for like a particular group of people. It's like, or a particular kind of fan. The people like us that like want to theorize about these things and want to discuss them and don't have like another outlet to do that with. And that's really the whole point of this. I'm surprised that I've only seen like 3 or 4 comments total that have been like, are you guys really going to go episode by episode or chapter by chapter with these books? But I think that it might only be like a few hundred to like a couple thousand people that want to do this with us. But to me, that's enough. That's a lot of people. To me, definitely. To be having a conversation, or if you think of it as a book club, or that kind of thing, like that's a lot of people to be having that discussion with.
Absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, it means that we can actually answer everyone's questions and talk to everyone in discussion. We don't have to. It's not a faceless mob. I mean, we recognise names quite commonly when everyone's commented weekly or every other episode. I remember them, and it's nice to kind of think back on previous discussions. Max being an obvious example, because he has posted so many thoughtful discussions.
Definitely,
it's just not something you get to do all the time, and I appreciate it. Chocolate ice cream is the best ice cream.
Is that like are you being serious right now?
I mean,
like,
it is the best ice cream.
Disagree. But I mean, and there was one woman, and she was the most British woman I've ever seen in my life. She had this very this way of talking. I mean, it was like, even by like her standards, like is this really what you're like around your family? Like, or is this like, are you doing a character right now? Because it just seemed so, like this. And
well,
it
that's
was
almost
like,
Ian McKellen and just dialed up.
But I mean, that's what she was doing. This is the way you will. I will show you how to have high tea. This is the way to do it.
I'm glad you're back, Antoine, because we carried that as far as we could. That one.
Los Angeles parking ain't no joke.
Yeah, the filibuster is over. We continue with what little we have left to do. Yeah. So now we're gonna give, like, what is it? This award is for ourselves, the favorite, our favorite Fanalysis episode, like to recommend to viewers, I suppose. Right? Is that what the idea was?
Yes.
And
the
that
one with the
was
best
the
discussion, best flow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that discussion, and I think we've had a fair few that have been pretty decent. But the one that we landed on was the discussion revolving around, surprise, surprise, the storm.
And it's just because there's so much interesting stuff to discuss. I mean, as we have done in this episode alone, you can talk about every scene, every shot, every frame of that is as we said, art. And I think that came across in our video. We managed to discuss a great deal. The themes, character development, what it was each moment was saying, and how it kind of delivered for the overall narrative. I just think it came out pretty well, and I hope you guys agree. And enjoy the series as a whole, because that's what we do these Fanalyses. We want people to enjoy and be able to enthuse with fellow fans about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So
Yes, indeed.
so
Yeah,
that's
that's my favorite one. Like, I think we all had valid things to say, and it all just went into each other, and it was like a natural flow of a discussion. And it was like the one that we weren't really like striving for things. It was just like, no, I want to talk about this. No, I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Oh, let's all talk about this together.
Well,
Let's all gush.
yeah. I think it's the moment where we figured that out, because I think there were episodes after that where we had a lot to say that it was interesting, but that was like the first time where like we locked that in, and the episode's just so damn good that like the discussion feeds off that.
Just
You know.
Right,
naturally
exactly.
flows. It's nice. But
yeah. So
that's a
Oh,
real
you
one
also
to discuss
tell
here,
Turk
right?
you love her because she'll come back if you give her lots of love.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
she's
Yeah.
floating in and out, and she'll be here whenever she can. She's got a busier schedule than us at the moment, so we're hoping to bring her back as soon as possible. And yeah, she's looking forward to coming back as well.
yeah, we gotta have her around to talk about Toph one of these
Yes,
days, right?
yes.
That's
Uh,
her favorite character, period.
Likewise, but I don't think I have quite the same enthusiasm for it as she does.
Um,
But yeah, so that's this episode. We've discussed the Fanalyses as a whole. We've discussed what we thought of the book one. Let us know what you guys think of it as well. In the comment section down below. Anything we've missed or you want to cover
and
in
tell
greater
us,
detail?
tell us your bottom 3 episodes and your top 10 episodes. I'd be interested to read, and like tell us why. It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah, and whether or not you agree with what we've said as well. If we said anything blasphemous this day, let us know.
Well, apart from you, no one's done that.
That's true. I am the only person who's been objectively wrong here. Yeah, and then let us know what you think, and I look forward to reading them as ever. And we'll be
And
bringing
then,
book 2 shortly.
Right. So what we're doing in between is, yes, we're gonna do the last Airbender movie, and I'm gonna do that completely drunk and hammered.
Do we have to?
I'm doing it.
Do we have to, Antoine?
I'm doing it. I'm going to do it hammered. No, but I don't know if we're gonna do that.
Wait,
first
are we
or
doing
if
that
we'll
hammered?
do the-
Are we doing that hammered?
I'm doing it hammered. I don't know what
I'll
you
need
guys
to
are
be.
doing.
I'm
I'm doing it.
All right, done. It'll be the first hammered Fanalyses.
Oh, that would be so dope.
It's such a train.
But yeah, I
wreck.
don't know if we should do that first or if we should do the Lost Adventure comic first. I don't know which one. Well, either one of those is coming out, so we'll go for that. And then we do book 2.
Okay, yeah, and there might be a brief gap between, but we'll see. And I hope you guys are looking forward to it, because we certainly are. I know that Matt's favourite book is book 2, and as is mine. Antoine, yours is book 3?
It's book 3 for me.
Yeah. So a little while till we get to,
I love
get
it.
to
Now
that. But
Yeah, I've said before, like most of my favorite moments are book 3, but as the seasons start to finish, book 2, that's where it's at for me. I love it.
but yeah, so looking forward to seeing you guys there. Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Yes, he does. That's it. Great Jedi 91. Keeping him honest. Take care, guys.
Antoine Bandelet. Remember, be water, my friends.
Goodbye.